Democrats claim that the Trump administration is abusing its power. The Republicans said the same about the Biden administration. So who's right? In this episode, we're going to talk about power, what it is, how it's wielded, and what it means for the average citizen. We'll also present our PoC Top-3 and some humorous but basically worthless bits of news you can't use. All that is coming up next on the Physics of Civics. Knowledge is not power. Money is not power. Influence is not power. Power is its own thing. How I would define it? Well, power is basically the capacity to impose one's will on others, to tell other people and order other people to do things and to know that they have to do it. It's kind of as simple as that. If, you're carrying a badge and you tell somebody to get out of their car, they have to do it. I suppose everybody's got a choice, but the choice brings consequences, and power means the consequences is not what you want. This episode of the Physics of Civics is brought to you by Savage Soaps. Cleanse, nourish, and revitalize your skin with luxurious handcrafted soaps for men and women, all made right here in the USA with sustainable, locally sourced ingredients. Shop SavageSoaps.com for soaps, body butter, salt scrubs, and other skin-loving products. Get wet with Savage Soaps. Power is power. We got to draw a very stark distinction between influence and power, between money and power. Now, all of those things can bring power. You can work your way into power if you have money, or if you're an influencer, or if you've got knowledge about something. Until you hold the power, you don't know really what it is. We look at some of the events in recent days, and as we're recording this, we're just a few days removed from the 12-day war between Israel and Iran. We saw a huge demonstration of power. We decided, as did the Israelis, that Iran was not going to have a nuclear weapon. They decided that they were. Well,
didn't go so well for them.
Didn't go so well.
So far, yeah.
Because we exercised power over them, and now they have to comply. They have no real choice. When we talk about government, there's always the factor of the consent of the governed. The people in any system are going to have a say, whether it's a monarchy, a republic, a democracy, a dictatorship. At some point, the leaders have to bow to the wishes of the governed. In our system, in a democratic republic, we exercise power with the consent of the governed. That's the whole point of our republic, is that the rank and file people of the country get a say. Otherwise, we've got tyranny. And tyranny is when the government completely ignores what the masses are believing and thinking, or what they want. In a monarchy, for example, power is inherited. My father was the king, his father was the king, I outlived my father, so now I'm the king.
Right.
Problem with that is that great leaders like Charlemagne are often followed by poor ones, like Lothar the Bald, or whatever the hell his name was. You can have one generation that's leading great and another generation that is just feckless, and that's kind of the ins and outs of a monarchy.
They haven't discovered the successful power gene yet.
No.
It's not in your DNA.
They haven't isolated that yet. Now, why do people follow a monarchy? Well, generally out of loyalty.
Right.
We're loyal to the crown. We're Frenchmen. We're loyal to King Louis.
Right. Yeah.
The downside of that is corruption. Corruption infects every form of government.
Every form.
Every form.
To one degree or another, yeah.
There's always corruption. With power comes corruption. Why? Well, what is government? Government is people in positions of power. And people, being human beings, are quite naturally influenced by the corrupting effects of power. In a monarchy, it's just kind of a natural byproduct of the system. Everybody knows that it's there. Mm-hmm. People taking taxes that they're not entitled to, people imprisoning others when they're not entitled to. It's just part of monarchy. We've gone from monarchy to a democratic republic. America is not a democracy. Let's get that straight. It never was a democracy. It was never intended to be a democracy. We live in a republic. And in a republic, in our republic at least, power is won through the electoral process. You get power by being elected or appointed by the ones who have been elected. Leadership generally tends to reflect the character of the society. So, it's like Edmund Burke said. He was an old-timey political philosopher. He said, in a republic, the people get the government they deserve. And that's, to a large extent, very true, or at least for a time. Why do people follow the leadership in a democracy? Well, it's not out of loyalty. It's mostly out of vested interest. Of course, corruption is there with a democracy too, but corruption is kind of a poison that threatens the whole system. It comes in many, many forms. The whole thing can be brought down by corruption, wouldn't you say?
One of the possibly most significant power-related corruption controversies in United States history, certainly as it pertains to the president, could be this Autopen thing.
Yeah.
I've got an article here I'm going to look at out of The Hill. The Hill isn't exactly a right-wing publication by any means. It's pretty down the middle, but it tends to lean a little left. The question is whether Joe Biden used an Autopen to sign official documents, including presidential pardons, executive orders, or perhaps even bills that were passed by Congress. If he did, was it just for convenience, or was it someone authorizing the use of an Autopen because the president was in the middle of a serious cognitive decline? I think the point here, as it relates to power, which is what we're talking about today,
right?
Obviously, our Constitution and the laws that are made following our Constitution set forth who gets power, as you described, Phil, how much power they're allowed to have, and what power they don't get. Yeah. And it's extremely clear in this documentation in the Constitution that the President of the United States must solely sign things like executive orders, bills, legislation passed by Congress.
Yeah, nobody else can do it.
And certainly pardons. In the last 2 years of President Biden, some outside sources who have compared signatures on these documents, because they're readily available, they're identical. They are Autopen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question then, of course, comes down to the power. Only President Biden had the power to sign these documents.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay. Autopens, presidents have been using Autopens for a long time.
Well, yeah, they've been around for quite a while.
They've been around for a while. I mean, the Biden administration didn't invent the Autopen.
The first president ever to use an Autopen was President Obama. He signed a dozen pardons because he was on vacation in Hawaii. He had a dozen signed by the Autopen. Mm-hmm. He became the first president ever to sign a bill into law with an Autopen. And it was the Patriot Act of 2011 because he was doing diplomatic work in France at the time. So he had an Autopen.
Right, but presumably he knew what was going on. He authorized it.
That's right.
Perfectly legitimate.
Yeah. President Trump used it a couple times, but he says he only used it for what he called, Trump language, unimportant papers. So, stuff.
Yeah, you never know what he means by that.
Public correspondence and ceremonial stuff, but never.
Well, yeah, I suppose if there's like stacks of form letters to go out, if he had to sit and sign all of them, he'd be there all day.
Yeah, exactly. According to some, and these are right-wing, like the Heritage Foundation and those who have been investigating this, certainly not our mainstream media. They don't care about it. But they claim that essentially almost everything signed in the last year of President Biden was done by Autopen. That's phenomenal.
Wow.
That gives us a bit of a take on power. And
I think that's going to be they're investigating this. It's going to be very, very difficult to prove.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, unless somebody comes forth as a whistleblower or something like that. Otherwise, you can surmise all you want. Knowing something and being able to prove it are two different things.
Exactly.
If it's true, this would be an egregious usurpation of power. Like you say, the Constitution sets forth very clearly what the powers are. Because why? They understood, our founders understood that power corrupts and people in positions of power can be corrupted, which is why they created the Constitution the way they did, by separating powers, enumerating powers, just generally keeping power from accumulating or aggregating into one power center. Like in a dictatorship, the dictator or the proletariat or the Politburo, they've got all the power. They delegate their power to their apparatchiks and whatnot.
Right.
They've seized power. They own it, and people follow out of fear. Generally, the power in a dictatorship goes to the most brutal and ruthless and opportunistic people. You don't get the best and brightest in charge
necessarily.
In a dictator.
That's right.
You get the worst. And unlike a republic where corruption is the poison that threatens the whole thing, in a dictatorship, corruption is the glue that holds the whole freaking mess together.
It's kind of based on corruption.
It really is.
Yeah.
In our system, like I said, we've got separation of powers. We've got levels of government, state, local, and federal. We've got branches of government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislative. These areas are designed so that no one person, no one faction can be all powerful.
So what happens when those folks in our government who are assigned a limited power go beyond those limitations? They overreach. Right. I mean, we've seen dozens of cases, especially recently in the last few years, where courts, and especially politically motivated judges, implement rulings that they really have no right to implement. But what does it do? It clogs up the system. It slows everything down. Yeah. Because it's got to make its way through appeals and other courts. And in the news now is a big case where a left-wing, politically motivated, Biden-appointed district judge made a ruling which he was not in a position to make. And it made it to the Supreme Court. Here's an article out of Politico about this. And it says the Supreme Court on Monday, this was this past Monday, cleared the way for Trump administration to swiftly deport foreigners to countries they have no previous ties. So in other words, you have somebody from Venezuela and they've been convicted, charged.
They've got a deportation
order. Most of these that are involved in this case, it was a class action case. Most of these were convicted of serious crimes. I mean, serious violent crimes. The administration, Trump's administration, was going to send them back to Venezuela as an example or whatever country they came from. And the country said, we don't want them. We don't want them. Yeah. They're criminals. You keep them.
We sent them to you because we didn't want them in the first place.
So what the Trump administration did, said, fine, we'll find a country to send them to. And in this case, I think it was South Sudan or some horrible place.
Yikes.
What happened is a district judge came along and said, you can't do that. He has no right to do that. It went to the Supreme Court and it was overruled 6-3. And of course, the 3 were the typical 3.
Did they say why?
No, they actually didn't, which is one of the complaints of the left. Is all they said was, it's simple. We read the law. The president has the power to do that.
Right. I mean, otherwise, we've got 677 district courts or district judges. Are they all going to have a say on national foreign policy? No. Foreign policy?
Can't happen.
They got no say on foreign policy. That's the sole discretion of the chief executive. So that's a little bit about power, and particularly how power works here in our country. Give us your thoughts on these. Where did we go wrong? What did we forget to add? We'll listen to them. We'll read them on our next podcast and tell you what we think.
Tell them about our top 3, Phil.
We are just going to, at random, just for the sake of fun and discussion, we're going to give our top 3 on various topics. Like, we are going to give our top 3 words or phrases that you would like to retire. And these are the catchwords and the buzzwords and the catchphrases that you've been hearing so much that are so overused they've lost all meaning.
There's plenty of them.
I'm going to start with my top 3. Jay, you give your top 3. And folks listening, give us your top 3 or 1 or 10 or how many you want. But my top 3, number 3 is next level.
Oh, yeah.
Now this kind of is a gamer kind of phrase, but it's been so overused. Take your workout to the next level. You know, we've taken these cars to the next level. Well, no one ever says what the next level is. It doesn't matter. It's just so overused. It just lost all meaning. Next one, game changer.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to go down the list of all the products I watched on an afternoon of television, all the products and services on television that call themselves a game changer. Now, I don't know what I did with that list, but there was like 8 of them, you know, in the span of 3 hours of watching TV. Everything can't be a game changer. But number 1, the top word or phrase that I would like to see retired is literally.
Absolutely. That's another one.
Not only is it overused, it's misused.
Yeah.
The word literally means true in the sense of the words used. So when people say, I was literally waiting here for 50 hours. No, figuratively, maybe. I was literally bored to death. You could not have been literally bored to death. So those are my 3 top phrases that I would like to retire. Jay, what are yours?
Just like to make it known that Phil is a word Nazi because he writes for a living. So
I write for a living.
He drives me crazy with my grammar, but he's right. But
and I'm a grammar Nazi,
I'll give him
too.
that. He's right. All right, here's my top 3. Number 3, know what I'm saying. Oh my God. You know, that's just like, it's like one of those cultural catchphrases that's kind of found its way into normal discussions every day, especially with, you know, suburban white teenagers. Did you see that movie, The Millers, or We're the Millers?
We're the Millers,
with Jason Sudeikis and Jennifer Aniston. Well, there's a guy in that movie who's chasing their daughter, and he goes by Scotty P. Scotty P. And every sentence he says, know what I'm saying.
Know what I'm saying?
Really funny. I'm sick of that one. My number 2 is think outside the box.
Oh,
you know,
God,
every sleazy politician talks about thinking outside the box, you know?
Yeah, you know, that was fresh and new back in the 80s.
Right. It's kind of verbal vomit, you know? And my number 1 is at the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
Every time you watch the talking head pundits, you know, on these political cable news shows, that phrase comes up every 5 minutes. At the end of the day,
it kind of replaces the phrase when all is said and done.
Right. You know, at the end of the day. But
this is what really matters.
So if I say any of these 3 words or phrases on this podcast, Phil, fire me. Fire me. All right, in our final segment, we try to find a news article that we're calling News You Can't Use. And it's just something off the rails, something weird.
You know, a lot of places give you news you can use. Nope. You can't use any of this. This is pointless information.
So here's an article that I found. Here's how many hours we spend using our phones on the toilet every year and why doctors warn against it. Yeah. Okay. So
they really do.
Yeah, it's an article by Adriana Diaz, published yesterday. A new study has revealed the total number of hours Americans spend using their phones while on the toilet every year. A team from QS Supplies, a bathroom supply company, surveyed 500 Americans about their bathroom habits. And one of the questions had to do with using the phone. Well, according to the study, Americans spend about 49 hours a year using their phones while on the commode. So it's like over 2 full days they sit on this pot on their phone. So they also dug down deep into the data to find out what they're using their phones for. And you won't be surprised. The vast majority, 66% of it is social media.
Yeah.
40% was watching videos, 37% was responding to texts, and it goes from there, sending email, the normal stuff. But most disturbingly, a strange 2% of people said they answer video calls from the John. I mean, I don't answer the phone if I'm on the job. I might be playing, playing chess or something.
Well, I think part of it is that people are just using their phones constantly anyway, and they just don't take a break when they have to go to the bathroom. They just keep going.
Phil, you and I are baby boomers. We'll get that up front here. Yeah. We didn't even see a cell phone until we were in our 50s or something, or 40s.
Right.
So it wasn't part of our culture growing up. So I'm not a phone guy. I'm not one of those people that's...
No, I'm not as married to my phone as some people. I use it like a lot of people, but I'm not, not that it's anyone's business, but I put it aside when I go to the John.
Well, I might take it in there to play a quick game of, whatever I'm playing that week, but that's about it. So
no, I'm focused on the task at hand. The only way you could use this article is if you're on the job. So we are very happy that you joined us here on the Physics of Civics. Again, we invite you to give us your comments. Tell us what you think. Don't forget to give us a like and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. Please join Jay and me for the next episode of The Physics of Civics.